Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. I'm your host, Brenda. Still working on the format a little bit. It seems that folks like the longer versions of my shows better than the shorter versions. So what I'm going to do or try here this week is to group together to bring you some current events, make the shows a little bit longer for you. You may get more than one a day. Bell next to the subscription button and click that little box so that you get email alerts on when I bring shows to you. You'll know exactly in your email when I publish a show. So we're going to give that a shot and see how that works. Way more than one show today. This particular batch is going to be political news. And I think I've got about 11 articles here in this batch to bring you. All the URLs, of course, are in the description of the video. So you can check them out at your leisure to check out whatever videos that they have in them and some things that you can click in if you want to do more research or get more information. The article that I have is off of westernjournalism.com, and it says, Trump invites foreign leader to the White House. This one reads, President Rodrigo Duterte received an invitation to visit President-elect Donald Trump in the White House sometime next year, according to a report from Reuters. Best known in the United States for lashing out at President Obama earlier this year and calling him the son of a whore. Trump Duterte over the phone Friday and what an aide to the Philippines president called a very engaging, animated conversation. Duterte advisor said the call lasted just over 7 minutes. The Associated Press, the advisor released a video in which Philippine leader smiling during the conversation with Trump and saying, "We will maintain an enhanced and bilateral ties between our two countries." Duterte was one of the first foreign leaders to congratulate Trump on his election victory. The two have often been compared because of their outspokenness. Live Mr. Trump, Duterte declared when Trump won the presidency. I don't want to quarrel anymore because Trump has won. Tension between the United States and the Philippines has been brewing for some time, primarily revolving around the Obama administration criticism of Duterte's drug war. Obama, you can go to hell. The EU better purgatory. The Duterte said in October, adding that he wouldn't stop his anti-drug crackdown until the last pusher is taken out of the street. Announced my separation from the United States, both in the military, not social, but economics also, Duterte announced. I have separated from them, so I will be dependent on you, China, for a long time. But don't worry, we will also help. A source who advised Trump on security policy said the president-elect wanted to approach the relationship with the Philippines as a clean slate. He's not invested in a policy of the past, the source said about Trump. He's perfect at this. He is perfectly capable of talking to Duterte in an open way without being wedded to previous policy failures, the source said. If anyone is going to be able to right the ship, it's someone with Mr. Trump's profile. The article that I have is off of regated.com, and it says Taiwan, who cares? There hasn't been a phone call between a U.S. president or a president-elect and a Taiwanese leader since 1979 until this week. On its face, the congratulatory phone call made by President Tsai Ing-wen to President-elect Trump may seem like a big deal, and the mainstream media will have you believing this is an end of the U.S.-China relations, but will actually change anything. To understand the significance or lack thereof, we need to take a brief look at the history between the U.S., Taiwan, and China. The history, in 1949, shortly after World War II, the Chinese Civil War erupted between the Communist Party of China and the Chinese Nationalist Party. The Civil War eventually shifted in favor of the Communist Party, and the Nationalists retreated to what is now Taiwan. There was never a formal end to the Civil War, and to this day, there is an open declaration of war between the nations. China considers itself to be the only legitimate government of China, including the land that is now Taiwan, while the Taiwanese see themselves as an independent nation. After the Chinese Civil War, the U.S. had formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan. There was a U.S. embassy in Taiwan, and Taiwan had an embassy in Washington, D.C. In 1979, the U.S. ended diplomatic relations with Taiwan because of the Soviet military threats. The U.S. embassy was moved from Taipei to Beijing, and Taiwan closed their embassy here in the U.S. Although formal diplomatic ties diminished in 1979, the U.S. and Taiwanese immediately established an informal diplomatic relationship under the Taiwanese Relations Act, or TRA. Under the TRA, Taiwan receives similar benefits as other formally recognized nations. They enjoy export-import, bank financing, overseas private investment corporation, or the OPIC guarantees to U.S. markets, and normal trade relations. What's even more interesting is the amount of arms the U.S. has sold Taiwan since 1979 to defend itself. One would assume, concerning the media's rhetoric, that the simple congratulatory call by President Tsai Ing-wen to President-elect Trump would irritate China to the point of harming U.S.-China relations. This may be reasonable considering there is an open declaration of war between China and Taiwan, and China and the U.S. have arguably the most important relationship between nations globally. If China cares as much about U.S.-Taiwan communications as the media claims they do, however, why have the billions of dollars worth of arms sales between the nations been ignored or overlooked for 45 years? Defense and military equipment has the U.S. sold to Taiwan since 1979. In total, more than $50 billion worth of arms. This total includes weapons, tanks, hundreds of aircraft, multiple naval ships, missiles, and more. Out of this $50 billion worth of arms sales, more than 14 billion, try that again, 14 billion occurred under President Obama. Additionally, President George W. Bush accounted for over $10 billion in sales, and President Clinton was responsible for over $17 billion in arms sales to Taiwan. In fact, less than a year ago, the Obama administration announced a $0.83 billion deal to sell arms to the armed forces of Taiwan. The strategy: whether President-elect Trump took the congratulatory call on a whim or if calculated is something we'll never know for sure. However, we do know that Trump ran a successful campaign partly on the promise to negotiate new trade deals with China. He bashed the Chinese treatment of the U.S., our currency, and our markets, and vowed to produce change. What will the change be? The New Deal be? What leverage will Trump use to make those deals? Donald Trump has made his negotiation strategies no secret by publishing The Art of the Deal, and this may be just a move out of his public playbook. Trump claims he's always maximized his options, never getting too attached to one deal or one approach. He claims the only way to get the deal he wants is to come from a position of strength. Specifically, he says, leverage to convince others, the other side, he has something they need. Could this all play right into his plans to negotiate with China as soon as he's in office? And more open U.S.-Taiwan relations is not a path China is hoping to venture down, which may be exactly why Trump is flirting with the concept. If this is just part of Trump's ploy to build leverage against China, then perhaps the media has underestimated him again. I have for you is off of LibertyWritersNews.com. It says, breaking: what Sarah Palin and Trump did today has liberals' heads exploding. There are rumors swirling around that Sarah Palin's going to become the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. She is currently a close aide and Trump official, according to ABC News. And it's then there's an insert that says, "Keep in mind that ABC News is the only one reporting this, and they are part of the lamestream media." So we'll take it. It says, "I feel as though the megaphone I have been provided productive and positive way to help those desperately in need," was one of Palin's aides told ABC News how she feels. It says Palin has a son-in-law that is a Medal of Honor recipient named Dakota Meyer. Her oldest son is a veteran that has served in Iraq in 2008. She knows veterans and wants to cut away the VA bureaucracy because it's killing our vets. The best part of Sarah Palin's potentially getting this position is that it's going to drive this stupid liberals crazy. Sarah Palin, the is not Tina Fey. She is not a caricature. She is red-blooded American, and she would do a great job at the VA. So there you have that information. So it's kind of a rumor at this point, but we can hope, I guess. To another article that I found about the VA, farming, and is reason why we need some new people in there and the swamp needs drained. This is off of sonsoflibertymedia.com. It says veteran dies with maggots crawling in wound. 4 employees at the VA hospital immediately resign. 4 employees at the Talhina, Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs Center have resigned after a patient was found with maggots in his wound shortly before he died. Talhina Director Miles Deering confirmed the maggots didn't enter the wound after the patient died on October 3rd, but rather were present still alive. However, Deering stressed that the patient did not die from the maggots themselves. He did not succumb as a result of parasites. Deering Tulsa World reports he succumbed as a result of sepsis. Deering also serves as Secretary of the Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs, which is separate from Federal Department of Veterans Affairs. 3-year-old veteran Owen Reese Peterson initially came to the medical center with an infection, but ended up to which he later succumbed. 4 staff members of the facility have resigned, a physician's assistant and 3 nurses. The OA has since reported the maggot incident to the Oklahoma State Department of Health and has sent over a report to the district attorney, which means charges may be forthcoming. Peterson's son described his frustrations with how poorly his father was treated while at the facility, even though he tried his best to be an advocate for his care. Staff seemed to completely ignore him. During the 21 days I was there, the medical staff to increase his meds so his bandages could be changed, Parker told Tulsa World. I was met with a stone wall for much of that time. Yet, as far as Parker is concerned, the nurses were excellent. He placed the blame instead on senior medical staff and the bureaucracy. In late November, Deering was given a raise by the Oklahoma, which is responsible for overseeing the Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs. The raise amounted to an extra $15,000 a year and was controversial at the time, not because of the maggots scandal, but because of the closure of a veterans facility that the state's budget is increasingly tight. Wow. I mean, and that's just tip of the iceberg. I mean, there are bodies at the VA center. I've heard stories about this where the dead bodies are in the body bags and they're not burying these people. They're decomposing in body bags. This is disgusting. And it's outrageous. This should not be happening in this country. The next article I have for you is off of regated.com. Trump's carrier deal proves he's already winning. Even before being inaugurated, President Trump is making good on his promise of fighting for American workers. This week, Carrier and Trump announced a deal that saved 1,000 jobs at a Carrier plant in Indiana from moving to Mexico. Remember, Obama ran on hope and change. If it was an easy or as easy as personally phoning a CEO of a company and striking negotiation to keep production in the U.S. Was Obama ever really fighting for American workers? Under Obama, jobs have moved overseas en masse. Instead of protecting American jobs, Obama has allowed the further gutting of our country's heartland. Under Obama, manufacturing jobs diminished. Under Trump, we have an actual shot of keeping our production and manufacturing in America. Unlike Obama's phony promises, Trump has shown America first is not a promise, but an attitude, seemingly the attitude of his entire administration. What will it take to placate the mainstream media and the liberal left? They scream and whine that Trump has taken hostage by Carrier, caving into corporate demands and incentives. Liberals and pundits aren't afraid to bring up the fringe group that rallied negatively toward Obama's win in 2008 and 2012. The mainstream media denounced and vilified the protesters against Obama, but instead supported and echoed the sentiment of hashtag not my president Trump protesters. Echo chamber is part of the reason why liberals will never be content with a President Trump no matter what. To combat against the conservative right echo chamber that's so easy to fall into, I will say that Carrier's incentives are being funded by taxpayer dollars. Some view the very notion of that as egregious. Another case of fascist buffoon Trump. Personally, I'm thrilled to see our tax dollars going to revitalize and re-energize American jobs and the economy, two of our country's most ailing sectors. To rebuild, we will most certainly have to invest, and that's exactly what Trump is doing with the Carrier deal. Without a doubt, people showed that their ass reacting to Obama's victories. They are being part of an extreme fringe group, not the majority. Similar to how the violent, narrow-minded sect of liberals screaming violence and hate are part of an extreme fringe part of the Democrats, not the majority. With mainstream media focusing on and echoing the sentiment of the hateful fringe group of liberals refusing to accept Trump as president, they play a dangerous game they know all too well. The mainstream media wants to divide us. With their brand of skewed, untrue, fake news befitting to the narrative of the day, they aim to divide and conquer, waging an all-out war on anything President-elect Trump does. The Carrier deal was expected to be sullied and dragged through the mud by a determined and unrelenting anti-Trump media. Whether or not you take the flunky mainstream media's bait and run with their take of events is entirely up to you. Whether the mainstream media likes it or not, Trump is proving he's willing to fight and win for the American people, something Obama seemed to be unable or unwilling to do. Next article that I have for you is off of the Washington Examiner. Top Mexican official says Trump's telling the truth about saving jobs. A top Mexican economic development official who shrugged off President-elect Trump's campaign promise to stop U.S. jobs from going to Mexico says the Republican is telling the truth now that Carrier and Ford have squelched plans to ship jobs south. Mr. President Trump is telling the truth. I don't know if it is correct or not correct, but he's telling the truth, said Jamie Garcia Astorga, Secretary of Economic Development of Santa Catarina, in the state of Nuevo Leon, and he is making the thing that he has promised. He was interviewed on CNBC. Astorga said nobody believed Trump when he promised to stop the outflow of U.S. jobs. He called the Carrier shift to keep many jobs in Indiana a wake-up call for Mexico. This is a learning experience lesson for our city. This is a learning lesson for our state, said Garcia. The next article that I have for you is off of the Conservative Tribune, and it says, outrage, city attorney in hot water after surveillance camera catches him recording Trump-hating stunt. Ever since election night, there have been numerous acts of vandalism and violence carried out by triggered liberals who can't wrap their delicate minds around the fact that President-elect Donald Trump won fair and square. For example, police in Philadelphia were investigating an city attorney after surveillance video showed him associated with some anti-Trump graffiti that was sprayed on the side of a building, WND reported. Duncan Lloyd was seen on security camera footage of the incident. Lloyd did not actually vandalize the building, but he put out his cell phone and recorded another man spraying F Trump on the side of the building. His blazer and the wine glass in his hand added a genteel touch to the event. He was recording it as evidence of a crime. You can watch the video here in this in this article if you care to. It says, we do not condone this type of behavior from our employee. First Deputy City Solicitor Craig Straw stated, we will decide on a course of action once we obtain more information about the investigation. Philly.com noted that the city's Republican Party issued a blistering statement calling on the city to fire Lloyd. Did the extra glass of Shavaz give him some sort of delusional confidence that there are no cameras on Germantown Avenue? The taxpayer should be entrusting exactly none of our faith to this man. He should be fired from our city's law department immediately, said the chairman of the Philadelphia Republican Party, Joe DeFleece. The damage to the building was estimated at somewhere between $3,000 and $10,000, WCAU reported. Lloyd and his partner should be forced to pay that cost, as well as getting some amount of jail time. If Lloyd was upset over Trump winning, he should have participated in peaceful protests, not helped deface property. Breaking the rules in this county carries a price, and hopefully Lloyd will learn the hard way that you don't vandalize property because you're upset. The next article that I have is also off the Conservative Tribune, and it says, Stein ups request for recount money. The presidential nominee of the socialism disguised as environmentalism Green Party, Jill Stein, has been raising millions of dollars to fund recount efforts in 3 states nearly won by President-elect Donald Trump in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, even though she's admitted that there's no evidence of widespread fraud. While Stein initially sought a mere $2.5 million to bankroll her efforts, she quickly raised the fundraising limit once she met that goal and appears to have raised the limit once again, according to the Washington Free Beacon. Citing unexpected increases in filing fees and attorneys' expenses, Stein has set the new funding goal at $9.5 million, more than twice the previous goal of $4.5 million. Stand up to the powerful forces trying to block our recount campaign for citizen democracy. Stein on her fundraising website. We received word yesterday that the final estimate for the filing fee for the recount in Wisconsin is $3.5 million, an outrageous cost increase from the initial estimate of $1.1 million that was given to us by Wisconsin state election officials based on the last statewide recount, she continued. But thanks to over 130,000 small donors like you, we have enough money in hand to pay this fee and move forward with the recount. Stein noted in a message that for filing fees alone, in 3 states, she needed roughly $3.5 million. For Wisconsin, for Michigan, and nearly $1 million for Pennsylvania. That plus attorney's fees and the cost of statewide recount observers brings her estimated total up to $9 to $10 million. They have criticized Stein's efforts and suggested it has all been a scam to raise money for other purposes, which has raised the question of what will happen to the money she's raised if the recount is ended prematurely or costs don't reach estimated levels. CBS News reported that while Stein didn't expect to have any funds left over once all was said and done, her website explained if we raise more than what's needed, the surplus will go toward election integrity efforts and to promote voting system reform. It's very highly unlikely that there will be any left over, explained Stein campaign spokeswoman Jordan Bruckner. The case is there. We will continue with Federal Election Commission guidelines. We will either return the donations according to those guidelines or put it toward voting reform. At this point, it's unclear exactly what those election integrity efforts and voting system reforms would actually entail. By Saturday afternoon, Stein had raised just over $6.9 million toward the $9.5 million goal, which incidentally was nearly twice as much as the $3.5 million she raised throughout the presidential campaign. So the next one that I have is off of PalmerReport.com, and it says lawsuit filed to force Florida recount. Federally registered nonprofit election entity launched a fundraiser to cover the court costs of a lawsuit it intended to file in the name of forcing a statewide recount in the narrowly decided state of Florida. Were fully crowd-funded with a matter of hours, and today the attorney in question announced that he has officially filed the lawsuit in question, creating at least some possibility that Florida recount may happen. Florida state law prohibits any candidate from requesting a recount, meaning that third-party candidate Jill Stein cannot force a recount in the state even if she pays for the cost, as she's doing in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. But this lawsuit is aimed at getting a judge to order Florida recount, whether Republican state officials want it or not. Clint Curtis, the Florida attorney who has been hired to lead the legal change in court, announced today by his official Facebook page that the election complaint is now indeed underway in the legal arena. Donald Trump was officially named the winner of Florida by a razor-thin margin, and only after Hillary Clinton had appeared to bank enough of an early vote lead in the state that would have been all but mathematically insurmountable for Trump to have come back and won. If the counts do rule that a Florida recount must take place, and if the recount reveals that Clinton did get the most votes in the state, those electoral votes could be reassigned to Clinton. Similar scenarios are playing out in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, with the fate of the election hanging in the balance. If you enjoy Palmer Report, consider making a contribution, the article says. So there you have that. And I might also remind you that in these articles, most of them have a comment section at the bottom of the article, and some of those comments are very informative, hysterically funny. So, if you need some entertainment, you might want to read some of that. The next one is off of youngcons.com, Young Conservatives, and it's General files lawsuit to stop the recount. It's time for recount nonsense to end. Jill Stein and Hillary Clinton aren't just embarrassing themselves, but they are embarrassing the election process in America. Yesterday, Donald Trump filed a complaint to stop the madness. Today, Michigan's Attorney General filed a lawsuit to stop the recount. Then there is an insert here. Let's see. It says this is just coming out via Politico, and it's an interesting turn of events in the ridiculous election recount saga started by Jill Stein and endorsed by many Democrats and liberals. Michigan's Attorney General has filed a lawsuit to stop the recounts of the presidential election results requested by Green Party nominee Jill Stein, his office announced on Friday. Stein's candidacy by massive margins, but her refusal to accept the state's verified results poses an expensive and risky threat to hardworking taxpayers and abuses by the intent of Michigan law. Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette, a Republican, said, we've asked the court to end the recount, which Stein is pursuing in violation of Michigan laws that protect the integrity of our elections. It is inexcusable for Stein to put Michigan voters at risk of paying millions and potentially losing their voice in the Electoral College in this process. Schutte's lawsuit, filed on behalf of the state, asked the Michigan Board of Canvassers to reject Stein's recount request on the grounds that Stein has acknowledged she has no evidence that fraud or widespread errors were committed. It's about time. Let's wrap this thing up. Hillary Clinton lost badly. To win the election, you have to win 270 electoral votes. She failed miserably. Dignity for once in your life. The next article we have here is off of Liberty Writers News, and it says, oh my God, the Democrats are destroyed after what their donors did today. Well, folks, this is it. The end is finally here, and boy, is it a spectacle to kick back and enjoy. It turns out that many of the Democrats' top donors are jumping ship after this election. Apparently, they are very unhappy about giving the Democrats billions of dollars only to lose the White House, Senate, and House of Representatives. In fact, it was so bad that the top former Hillary Clinton fundraiser named John Morgan told The Hill, done with this political giving entirely. My message to anyone reading this is don't call me, I'll call you. Hey, who can really blame them? I mean, look at how terrible shape the Democrats are in. Not only did they lose, they now have zero leadership. We're going to have to fire Donna Brazile after firing Debbie Wasserman Schultz just a few months ago, and they're totally out of touch with the American people. You know what that means, don't you guys? That means that Donald Trump kept his word in helping to remove all the dirty money from politics. Ha 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 ha. This is great. More pages to this article if you want to pull it up and go through them yourself, but you have the basic gist of it. So there we have this issue of the political news with Trump and the recounts and all that's going on there. And I'll see you in the next exciting episode. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and share it around so people get the word.